and see some people coming in. We're welcoming in, so we can probably
Get started.
get started.
Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. I invite you as you're coming in. We're going to wait a few minutes to let a variety of people come and join us, but please share a little bit where you're calling in from, maybe something about what brought you here today. We're so glad you're here. So, again, welcome for those who are joining. And if you get a chance, put in the chat a little bit about where you're coming from, what might have brought you here today. Welcome again, those who are just coming online and joining us. I invite you to just express a few words where you're calling in from, anything you want to share about what brought you here today. We're delighted you're here. Thanks so much for joining. We'll get started in a few minutes. We're just going to give persons a moment or two to also join with us. Welcome, Ihan. So glad you're here. Give it another minute or so, and then over to you, Shayna, in about a minute. So again, welcome those who are coming online to join with us today. We're grateful you're here, and just share a little about from where you're connecting in the chat, if you would. Maybe even something else about what brought you here. We got persons from Boston and Ventura, California, and Washington, D.C., San Diego, Newport Beach, New Hampshire. Beautiful. So if you're just coming online, please join us in the chat. Introduce yourself, a little about where you're calling in from, anything you're looking forward to. Thanks again for joining us today. When you're ready, Shayna, over to you. When you want.
Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, the day of the solar eclipse. We're just going to take a couple minutes to, arrive together. As we know, everyone's busy, rushing around to get here. Here we are. So we're just going to do kind of a breathing exercise, just 3 deep breaths. So first, just kind of, sit in your chair, or if you're standing, get your feet on the floor. If that feels comfortable, let your shoulders soften. Close your eyes if that's okay, or just lower your gaze. Just come into your body. Now just take a nice slow breath in through the nose. And a nice long breath out through the mouth. Again, breathing in, arriving your body. Breathing out whatever you carried into this moment. One more breath in, leaving room for curiosity. And breathing out, opening what needs to emerge between us. Okay, here we are.
Thank you, Shana.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Well, the hosting team here, we'll introduce ourselves briefly first, before we hand it over to um, Eugene and others. So I'm Jason, part of the core hosting team. My role on the team is helping with outreach and with program. So I'm grateful to be part of this core hosting team and the gift of helping make Solarize 2026 happen. And an area, kind of a work project or passion outside of my Solarize life is, I would say, something called E-Track, where we're taking the wisdom of the Enneagram and supporting people's journey of integrating that into daily life and service. All right, a little about me. Who would like to go next in the core team? All right, Shana, over to you.
Okay, I'm Shayna. I am in Ventura, California, and it is a beautiful day. I have been part of Solarize since almost the very first year, 2020, or when I started in 2002. I think it was crazy. Anyway, so I've been part of what Solarize has been dreaming up over the last 25 years. We've taken a few breaks, but it's been awesome. My role has always been really in sponsorships, trying to raise funds so we can underwrite ticket prices, so we can keep the costs down. I just love that model. And yeah, so my I got another, this is my hobby. My other job is I sell interactive technology at trade shows. So having a trade show business otherwise. All right, I'll hand it over to Cameron.
Hi, everyone. My name's Cameron Pickworth. I've been working with Solarize now 4 years. I primarily handle operations and logistics. So if you have any questions about that stuff, I'll be your gal. I love working with this team, great group of people, and I'm excited to see you all today. That's all from me. I'll jump to Eugene.
I guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. Yeah. I'm Eugene in the Boston area. In my former life, I was a pastor at a church, but now I'm sort of in the spiritual innovator space. Started a nonprofit exploring alternative ways of self-organized gathering, and I'm the director of a newly emerging post-denominational network for ministers and ministries who are all about justice, inclusion, and a better world. So Solarize is kind of a passion project for me, and my role is the program director. So I'm helping to facilitate the conversations around the what experience we're going to share together. So I'll hand it over to
Well, and
Spencer.
maybe with programming, Oki, I don't know if you'd be
Mhm.
willing. She's our latest member, uh, working with our programming
Surprise,
team.
Oki.
Yeah, Oki, would you just share just a moment too?
Hello, everyone. I'm Oki. Good to be with you all today. I am calling in from the Catskills. I move around a lot, so whenever you encounter me, I may be somewhere new. And yeah, I do experience design and also creative companionship, so helping people bring their brilliant ideas to life. And happy to be with you all.
And my name's Spencer Burke, and um, I host the event, and it started 25 years ago. I enjoy uh, connecting people, trying to find kind of what we talk about composting, find a fertile ground without agenda, without a brand, without control in those ways, but really kind of hoping for the idea of emergence. That if we can create the conditions, the fertile conditions for conversation, then whatever comes out of it, we don't try to control, but we encourage it. And as Shana was saying, it's been a pop-up, and we're celebrating our 25th year of doing it. We've done it about 13 times off and on between it, and we're so excited about what is going to be coming up this coming year. So very excited on that.
All set, Spencer? Is that everything you wanted to share? Okay.
Or I could do a little bit about.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, my apologies. So with it being the 25th year, the key things to think about is it's relational at the core. It's so every time that we gather, every time we have open space, every time we've got a meal, it really is to try to encourage people to come together. And we've had so many stories of people who have met and then have created a film festival or a school or a book or whatever it is. And it's just wonderful to see actually some of the fruit over 25 years. It almost takes that long to even start to see some of the early ways in which some of what is happening is there. We focus on the innovation curve. So it's really the early adopters and the innovators. So you'll find a unique group of people in the room. You can go to a lot of different events and you'll have to move through the whole room to try to find this group of people. And what we've tried to say is, well, what if we just focused in on that? It doesn't have to be huge. It just has to be us, and not us as exclusive. It's wide open. Anyway, in fact, if you know of anybody after today, as you feel this and sense it, it's always somebody who's drawn to the event. We're not trying to promote people to it. We're trying to draw people to it. And the other thing that I would just close with is that this is wonderful and amazing, but it only does something in a certain way when we're online, right? There is something very special about setting aside 3 days. It's expensive. It's costly in 1,000 ways, and money is only one little tiny portion of it. You know what I mean? It really is the ability to be in focus together. But it also is a great gift to you and to each other when we're in the room together or outside in the community together. And so I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of not being online, but being in person. And then finding that magic that happens when only you're in person, something can happen. I love this today, but I'm really looking forward to being in the room together. So thank you guys so much for being here today. And I hope you'll be with us in Chicago and whoever else you might have in mind to join us.
Thanks, Spencer. So I'm going to offer just a little bit of framing around what is going to happen at Solarize before we go into our conversation with Dr. Shomova. And our team has done a lot of listening and a lot of conversations over the past 2 years about what's the conversation that needs to happen. On the very first day, we are going to ground, basically arrive and focus on resourcing ourselves, coming into this space with healing, with connection. And so that first day is going to be led by Dr. Laura Calderon de la Barca. And then on the second day, we start to widen our lens. We maybe even look at the lenses that we are bringing. And Dr. Bayo Komolafe will be sort of guiding us in that conversation. And then the final day is where we sort of turn, perhaps, maybe, maybe not, toward movement. And I'll share a little bit more about how that theme is evolving even today. But that will be led by Dr. Somava Saha, who we have on the call today. Outside of those main sessions, we have lots of amazing learning conversations where people will be hosting spaces for learning, but also for connection and conversation and interaction. And then Stephen Lewis from Forum for Theological Exploration will be guiding and leading us conversations that need to happen in the room. So there's ample space for surprise and for things to emerge that are impossible to predict or plan. And it's going to be great. I'm really confident of that because it's going to be, as Spencer said, it's going to be us. We are the main ingredient for a gathering like this. And so speaking of one of those ingredients, sorry to refer to you as an ingredient, so that's rude. Um, you are a person and an amazing one who's done incredible work all over the world and so much impact. You could look at Shomava's bio rather than me read off the bio. It's way too long and too many things in there. But what's really resonated with me is just this. I've just experienced you, Shomova, as just a very like invitational voice, and I resonate a ton with sort of your kind of systems approach to things. And of course, that's one of the reasons why some of your work has had so much wide reach. And so super excited just to talk today. And I'm wondering if Cameron or somebody can drop the bio in the chat. That would be great just for people who are curious. So Shomova, thank you so much for being with us today. And I wonder, I just want to give you just like a minute or two just to introduce yourself um, about, how are you showing up today and what's important to you? What would be good for us to know as a first step?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. And as you each were talking about how we'll be gathering over the 3 days, I just want to thank you for putting me on that last day because I'm looking forward to being part of the community in those first 2 days and really like engaging with what that incredible group of people who are gathering, not only in grounding myself, but in discovering together what we may have to offer one another and what might emerge between us. In our work, I currently serve as the president and CEO of Wellbeing and Equity in the World, which very intentionally doesn't shorten to like WITW. It really is we in the world. And the question we always ask is, we operate out of a place of abundance that comes when a we gathers, and we know that that's not about our we. Like there's not one we that will create the conditions for healing in the world. In fact, abundance, it comes from knowing that no one of us have to be those heroes, but that all of us have the capacity to connect our we's together in what we call a root system for better
Mhm.
ancestors. And so, and the last thing that I'll say is, the question that's been really animating our work is this question of what it means to be a better ancestor in this time. One that's grounded in our history, that does our own spiritual work. I don't mean necessarily from a particular denomination. Eugene, I loved your post-denominational and bio. We'll talk about post-activism work. But for us, it's actually saying, what does it mean to know that we are the carriers often of the system, intentionally or unintentionally, all of us, because we're in it? How can we
Mhm.
do the spiritual work we need to heal ourselves, to be honest about how history shapes the present moment and ways in which we may be consciously or unconsciously perpetuating that, but at the same time, that call in together of we can't change the way the world has shaped us. What we can do
Mhm.
is say, who do we want to be together for the next
Mhm.
7 generations? And to choose to do something today as a better ancestor that speaks to that. And that isn't coming from we in the world. That question is alive in communities
Yeah.
and has been for hundreds of years and shapes why
Yes.
we have so much today.
Yeah. I can't tell you how much of that resonates with me on a very, very deep level. And so that's why I feel like part of why Solar Rise even exists are these very like resonant signals in the air that, you know, we're all coming around to or sensing, intuiting the same, whatever you want to call it, call, invitation, this thing that is happening that's bigger than all of us. And so I'm wondering if I could ask as a just like an opening into like the solarized thing, like why did you say yes to this particular thing? Um, what drew you to being a part of this gathering? Which you shared a little bit before, but I'd love to hear you say a little bit more.
Yeah, I think what really drew me was the practice that I could see in all of
Mhm.
you, even before the gathering, from the invitation that was grounded in relationship to the recognition that all of us actually need to shift from the way that we think about, and the willingness to
Mhm.
ask, how might we, in a curious way? And because I don't think any one of us has the answers, but it's actually the knowing that it's when we come together that we can begin to see a piece of the truth that might emerge.
Mhm.
And that can be pretty, or that could be coming from the clash of different opinions that a spark arises. But it's trusting in that process and trusting in what
Mhm.
will emerge. So I said yes because I wanted to be part of the gathering myself, uh, to be
Mhm.
able to see and experience that.
Thank you. And we're so glad you did say yes. And we're so excited to be with you there. So I'm gonna make like a little bit of a confession on our end, right? And share a little bit of what's evolving and like our learning in this whole process. Originally, when we mapped out the 3-day arc, we thought the last day was gonna be like, all right, we're ready for action. We are gonna get organized, we're gonna like, change the world, we're gonna go out there. And so we're like, all right, let's go. But I think now we're hearing a very different kind of signal. Um, and so the theme has evolved from organizing to action to, okay, well, moving forward. Well, now I'm thinking just moving. Like, let's just let's just move. That there's no direction. Whatever move or shift has to happen, let's invite ourselves into that. And so that's kind of like where I sit personally, not speaking for the rest of the team. I'm very open. That last day is just about movement, whatever that means. And so I'm wondering, how does that sit with you, Shomava? What's resonating about that third day? What needs to happen? And wondering if you can kind of share what part do you feel like you bring into that conversation or that arc?
I think, um, for me, the deepest movements are are often look like small degrees of change. But had the
Mm,
Titanic like shifted by 5 to 10 degrees, there might have been at the beginning of that journey, there might have been a different outcome. Now, hopefully,
mhm.
the Titanic isn't the best analogy, perhaps, for where we are as a world, but and certainly a wealthy ship isn't the thing that we all want to be on. Some of us may not wish to be on ships at all, but there are ways of recognizing that there are things happening in the world that require us to be so clear and so grounded in the way we show up, in the way we respond, not one crisis at a time, but in a way that weaves a deeper knowing, a deeper being, a deeper reimagining. And that in our world, we think of many different sort of layers of what change can look like. And that might mean for some of us, there are so many ways. Solarize will be happening right before a major national election, and knowing and doing things that help not only vote, but help communities that maybe have a harder time voting because of restrictions. There's things that one can do that are about powering the polls, and there are groups organizing to do that, or helping our friends and neighbors understand policy, or showing up for our friends and neighbors where they may be experiencing attack or whatever that might be. There's another group that is work that's doing things like practical, powerful change, that recognize that when people, when there's major change in systems, it's also an opportunity to reimagine them, and they may choose to do that. And there are others who may be really able to say, how do we build long term generational change? And not something that is only something that we will do later, but actually things we do today that create the conditions for shifting us from individualism to interdependence, say, or a spiritual piece. But underneath all of that, there has to be, I think, a spiritual foundation of our why, of who we are, of connecting to our own roots, our history, our story, and what it means for each of us to be a better ancestor, what it means for our communities to be better ancestors, and not just from a place of what is wrong in the past, but actually for what was either
Mhm.
already beautiful in the past or is being still protected at the margins, that can help guide a path, that can help us engage in reimagining. And I think that there is such, when we free ourselves from being the heroes of these stories and instead weave in as Ruth supporting others, as ways in which we can reimagine, when we reclaim what is already so beautiful. I live in an abundance world, Jean. Like I live in a world where I
Mm,
see brilliance and abundance every single day. And for me, like it is the richest life imaginable to know how can we create the conditions for that. And it requires letting go of hero narratives of how even in nonprofit spaces or in faith communities, we might think about how we have to be the change makers and brand that and claim that, which is, if we really think about it, a colonial practice of staking a ground, a flag on a piece of land or a piece of idea. And I think the more that we can begin to question that and also remember how what we did in the past to chart a path forward, I think the more that we begin to
mm.
get at what could be truly whole for all of us.
Beautiful, Somava. I think one of the things that excite me about Solarize is I think the room is going to be full of people just like nodding their heads, like as you're describing that. And I wonder about how do we. I guess what I would say is like if you were to choose like one shift, I'm sure there's lots of shifts, but you mentioned these small shifts that um, make big change on the like a longer time scale. Um, and you've got a bunch of people in the room who are invested in change making, who are looking for new ways of connecting people to spirit and soul. And like this is like your shot, you get a room. I'm sure you're in front of lots of like really great crowds. But this is a room full of people who are like really like-minded and like-hearted, let's say. And I guess what's the one thing that you would ask us to walk away with? Uh,
I would say it's to shift from independence to interdependence in a way that acknowledges that not only can we be more or do more together, but that we are enough. That this work of equity or racial justice or working to address the problems of the world are not rooted in saving broken people. It's about recognizing that people are noble. As a Baha'i, my faith tradition says that every people has a piece of the puzzle that's needed for the
mhm,
healing of the world. And if we can reframe ourselves that this work of creating a world that's grounded in our collective independence is about not fixing people, but creating the conditions for that collective pieces of the puzzle for us to join together to see what emerges from that picture, to use Spencer's words from before, and to collectively build and create the conditions for what comes next. That's the thing that I think I keep leaning into. Like
mhm,
what would core principles of our Declaration of Interdependence look like if we didn't
mhm,
see some as more than others? And what would it look like for us to create the conditions for safety, trust, and real healing that has to come before trustworthy interdependence?
mm. Um, just asking, just to double click on that, that question of like, what does it look like? I wonder if you could share maybe one thing just from your work that is an embodiment of what you're talking about.
Oh gosh. There are so many stories I could share, but one that I'll say really arises, and I'll just say this because I was speaking with one of the pastors just last night, so it's just fresh in my mind. During the pandemic, we could see that communities that had been experiencing injustices had not only were experiencing the worst outcomes, that you would predict that actually, but that also the resources meant even for those communities weren't getting there, and that there was often framed as a lack of trust. That was the barrier
Mm.
versus a lack of systems and ways of getting people there. So we challenged the base premise of asking for trust and shifting the systems to ones that created the conditions for trust. And to do that, we had to be in relationship with those who are trusted. That brought together Indigenous health leadership across the country, farmers, faith leaders, 10,000 Black artists, activists, all of the migrant serving organizations, but also Meals on Wheels workers across the country, those working in senior centers, those who really had deep roots in communities. And as they came together to begin to imagine, instead of putting them in competition or asking them to show they were trustworthy, we created the conditions for trust in what they knew would matter in their communities. And that what that did was, and we were like a year old as an organization at the time, we didn't have power. We didn't particularly have, like, quote unquote, but actually that power doesn't come from position. It comes from a collective that can shift the story and the abundance. And because we believed in that, that helped not only get $30 million to those communities, that's great, but actually the what happened when we trusted those who are closest to the problems to be abundant and trusted not just what they could do in the short term, but what they wanted to do for the long term and committed to that, that then led those more than 11,000 people who were sustained as those trusted and trustworthy, and I would say spiritual change makers. They wouldn't perhaps all describe
Mm.
themselves as others, but their quality of their trustworthiness was, I think, deeply spiritual. They restored 195,000 birthdays in those communities. Over 1.5 million people uh, were assisted in their well-being, not just around a vaccine. They reframed what that meant. State laws passed. They built connection with one another across deep political divides that is continuing to move resources. And yesterday, I was joining with in Eastern North Carolina, where Reverend Joyner, who had been a CNN Hero of the Year, had out of this initiative had brought together 40 to 50 faith leaders across the Eastern North Carolina and farmers, and they had taken their land and were growing food and growing and understanding what it meant to heal generational trauma and what it meant to come together to invest in the human development of the neighborhood of the region in one of the places that needed it the most. There was a depth and richness of the conversation and the strategy, and we could pair that with enabling pieces that could help those that had access to that reimagine what they could do, but was grounded deeply in the spirit of these faith communities reclaiming soul and role for who they were in this community and what it meant to create a path for the children, the seniors, it's in the community, not just to be well today for short-term things, but to create something that would not heal generational trauma, but help people,
Mm.
these children, remember that they were noble, that they could be the leaders, that their communities are whole, and that together they had the opportunity to really build and show what that wholeness could look like together. And so to
Mm.
me, that's the kind of thing that when we trust in spirit and trust what emerges, people create the conditions for well-being and abundance. And our job is, what could we do together that helps support that leadership,
Mm.
trusts it, and invests
Wow.
in it together.
That is an absolutely incredible example. Thank you so much for sharing it, and I'm sure we all can't wait to hear more, because it's really remarkable, because you're not just talking about, oh, what's the, like, you know bottom of the iceberg shift, but like you've actually seen it all the way through the systems and structures, the patterns, the events, and like actual changed outcomes. And I think we would all be really encouraged to be able to witness and hear more about that. Um, so it's really really encouraging. Uh, just looking at the time, I do want to make some space for others to speak into this conversation as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Jason and Shayna. So our conversation is not over. We'll just sort of open it up a little bit more. So Jason and
Yeah,
Shayna.
yeah, wonderful. Well, yeah, we have about 10 minutes. So I wanted to at least give us about 5 minutes. Um, Not to put any single person on the spot, but I really want to welcome people who, uh, haven't yet shared. Just to, if you have a question, if you have something you want to share that really touched you, Isa, Mark, Rob, Samuel, Ihan, anything coming up for you, we welcome that here. And whether it's just a question or an observation, want to open it up, please feel free to share.
I just really love when you talked about interdependence, but it was really this idea of looking 7 generations ahead. And
Mm,
just that concept alone also made me want to think 7 generations back. What that really seeing where you lie within that. And then, as you said, these interdependent sparks, pieces of puzzles, whether we realize it or not, what that tapestry starts to look like, to me is really beautiful. But
mm,
also to have that intention of that, what we all do now has a reverb, has a ripple. And if we could just think about that for a second, that just really hit me in a
mm,
really profound way. That was beautiful.
mm. Beautiful. Thank you, Kisses. Thank you so much for sharing.
He said that's exactly the 7 generations back to locate ourselves, like to root, good, bad, or ugly, but we can claim it but not be bound by it. And then in indigenous traditions, communities, they say that when we choose to be those better ancestors, we don't just create the conditions for well-being for the future, we actually heal our past.
Right.
Mm.
Mm, thank you. This is okay. Anything else that touched your heart or your mind?
Raising my hand.
Shayna, Ted.
Wow, so rich, so much. I'm scribbling notes over here. What are the best? But I just love that free ourselves as heroes, letting go of hero narratives, the
Mm,
colonial practice that we're addicted to, that we keep trying to save the world using poor methods, basically. So really, thank you, Somava, for bringing that point forward. Um,
mm,
I'm certain as we gather together, we gather many, maybe, not really willing heroes. They're not trying to be heroes, but, there's a void that people fall into, and we think we should do more. We need to, and to realize that there's a trap in that. I just love bringing that up. It was fun to listen to Bio last time, and we were talking about hope, and he was like, what if that's a trap? What if being hopeful is a problem? So it's like that's what I feel like Solar Rise really is for us. It's like flipping a lot of scripts and opening our minds up to what,
mm,
you know, how we are going to live in. And I also love that you brought up the, what can we keep? Not everything needs to be thrown away. There's good stuff. Let's look for the good stuff instead of rallying around what's
mm,
terrible.
mm. Thank you,
So
Shayna.
thank you so much.
Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Just a few more minutes.
Um, I have a complexity of thoughts, um, and I'll try to stay with this one. In the work that you do, in the work that we do, um, in this building of community and in the shift to abundance mindset, um, it requires deep vulnerability. Um, so, and showing yourself like that takes energy.
Mm,
Uh, I am with my own exhaustion right now.
mm,
I'm possibly with the exhaustion of the people in this room and beyond.
Mm.
Um, and this work pulls at the energy reserves that our bodies can provide
Mm.
in the ways that we exist right now in our flesh and our blood. Um, yes, there is other energies and spirits out there to sustain us, and we
Mm.
still have our bodies to take care of, right?
mm,
So I'm sitting with the question um, as we are getting into this 3-day event. This 3-day event is only one way to see what has been happening over time and memorial. Right? How does it keep going? How do you hold the vulnerability? How can people heal from showing themselves? Being healed in the showing, but also, right, we have to reconnect with the world out there once we're done with the 3 days, you know. And then sometimes when I exit these spaces, I feel more distant and more incomprehensible to the folks that I actually need to ask for funding for or whatever it might be. It's a real challenge. The more I develop and transform, the less I'm comprehensible in other spaces.
Mm.
mm.
So it's not a question, it's just something I'm sitting with.
Mm.
I just
Beautiful.
want to fully acknowledge that it's like being in an alternate world, and then you go back and there's this energy of code switching to where people are. And some of what, as we were meeting at a Legacy of Liberation gathering in Eastern North Carolina, and what's in actually in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We're actually not only in North Carolina, we're all over the world. But what came out of that was this idea of what is exhausting us was trying to reform a world built in cement and concrete that isn't designed for life in the first place. And it's draining us because it is exhausting. And fighting cement is like, it doesn't work. And that actually part of what we need to do is not react and stay in the fighting of cement. It's the courage to let it go and to know that it's okay to take time in our own, that we need to reconnect to the groundwater that is already there, that we need to fill our own spirits, because otherwise, whatever we do next will just carry that stuff in with us. And that there is a real importance of building community for people who are coming out of this space. So in a lot of our work around better ancestors, create some of those healless places of circles of people who can keep making sense together, even as they work, and having community that even as they're working to change and do battle in some way with those systems, but also invites us that we have not gotten here overnight, that this is going to take time, and we need to not exhaust ourselves. We actually need to reconnect to the groundwater. We don't have to be heroes alone, and we have time. And that doesn't seem like, it doesn't seem like it seems counterintuitive. But actually, if you take that step back, it is enormously grounding and gives us actually the charge to be whole, there was this beautiful metaphor in the Barefoot Guide for Generative Leadership that emerged from a gathering of social change leaders in South Africa a couple of years ago, of a river that had been taken up, that had been seen as untrustworthy because rivers flood and all that stuff. So they'd made it into a canal with cement. And so people were trying to say, well, how could we, and the river had become polluted. It was nothing was growing in it anymore. And they were thinking like no one would be able to use it. And instead they said, well, what could we do? They had someone say, what would it take to remove all the concrete? And it was impossible, like completely impossible. And then they said, well, what would it take for us to imagine? And someone said, well, what if we could drill holes through the concrete and reconnect this river to the groundwater? So that was the first thing they did at every few meters. And that reconnection and putting in some rocks for life to grow helped. And then someone said, well, beavers create turbulence in waters. What if we could create some barriers? And some of us did that. So there was enough turbulence for things to grow. And they did that. And then someone said, well, what if we planted trees and roots in some of these holes? And as they began to do that, it wasn't about what they did, wasn't about removing or dismantling the cement. It became about creating the conditions for life. And in a few years, that's what happened. The river began to just grow back and fill back up with life. And I just invite us into that kind of space because they could have exhausted themselves trying to move that concrete. But actually, what they needed was to reconnect with groundwater, to reconnect and see and learn and grow together. And so that's my biggest invitation to you, is to know that we can't take on these problems either alone or just by dint of will, that exhausting ourselves doesn't serve us well. And that we have to create the conditions for both being in joy, being whole, and being part of creating that change with others who might have something to offer.
Thank you, Shomava, and thank you, Khan, for such a beautiful sharing. And this is what Dolores is about, to engage in relationship one another, to learn from one another, to express our pain, concern, thoughts, our hearts. And so thank you so much for all those who've given voice to what touched you today. Or we want to continue this together in October. A few calls to action just as reminders as we prepare for that. Maybe Shayna, I could invite you just to share the kind of three things before we kind of check out and close our time today.
Okay,
Thank you.
so yeah, wow. If you want to join us, if you haven't already registered, I think some people that are on here have already purchased their Solarized ticket. If you want to register before September 8th. There's like an early bird price on the website. It's just solarized.org. And then if you could, we really, really want to make this a special gathering. And, people are just out for the summer. It's hard to really get voice on, the interwebs. So please personally tell maybe a few people, maybe 3 to 5 people, like you got to go if it makes sense, just turn a couple of your friends on to what we're doing. It is really going to be amazing. It always is. And we always hear a ton of people that go, why didn't I go? And sort of audience, I'm the person, Shayna, and my email's on the website. You'll find it under sponsorships. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us today.
So as a way to close, want to invite everyone just to express a word in the chat in terms of how you're closing today. And
I just left one small thing, and I think this is the event that this Sacred Design Lab put on. Long story short, it was a talk about pilgrimage and what you all are about to experience. I wish I could go,
Mm,
reminds me very much about what that talk was about. And
Mm,
just the
Mm,
last conversation about when you're doing something that intentional, but then also allowing time to integrate once you come kind of land back into the real
mhm.
world. There was some really interesting insights on that talk that spoke exactly to that last point. So I just end with that.
Thank you.
thank you. Right, so as a means to check out, just go ahead and share a couple words, and we look forward to seeing you in October.
thank you, everyone.
Circles, gratitude, beauty, movement, affirmed, drawn, rich. Looking forward to diving deeper. Beautiful. And thank you, Kisa. So there's a great link there for the Spiritual Innovator Network and their conversation around pilgrimage. Beautiful. All right. Thank you, everyone. That's it for today. Thank you, Somava.
Thank you.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yay.
Again, wonderful.
Yay. Gosh, that was rich. That was so
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're doing this right. You know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah.
craziness. So
So it sounds like Kissa was from Sacred Design. She got referred to us from
yeah, so it was on the pilgrimage. There was a webinar recently, and so they've been advertising us.
Great.
And in fact, a number of people have kind of popped in and out because of that. But you just we'll wait and see where this all goes. Um, I do think we could, and maybe Eugene, do you want me to ask Shomava if she could do one last push to ask her community if there was anyone who wanted to come and personally join her at the event? I think
Yeah,
that's the
I'll send a follow-up
Yeah.
okay.
thank you with just remind her about the code and make sure she has like a graphic and all that.
That'd
And
be
don't be
great.
afraid to say we need help promoting. We need more
Yeah.
attendees.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's the I think we also can couch it in the idea that this is the last push. You know what I mean? And I love the way Stephen Lewis was doing it. He actually said, "Hey, would you join me personally as I'm participating and designing?" And that's seemed
I
to have
just have
been
a
pretty
feeling that
effective. So,
Shomava is definitely looking forward to this as a retreat. She might not want all the people joining her.
oh yeah, yeah. Well,
She's like,
maybe,
she seems to
yeah.
really be looking forward to it. I'm like, so that's so wonderful, wonderful.
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you guys. Is there anything
I'm just
else
thinking
that
like
we,
maybe in a week or so, I don't know what your schedule is for your next email, Spencer, but once the Somava talk is up, we could just say, hey, if you want to just get a taste of Solarize, we've got 3 amazing talks.
yes. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And we'll also be splicing it and putting it into all of our
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
socials.
And I guess my favorite quote was at 11:27. Should I just email? Yeah, the
Cameron.
hero
Yeah.
narrative. I really like that one.
Yeah, I'll work
Yeah.
on all
That was
that. Sorry,
wonderful.
guys, I'm having some technical difficulties. Um, but yes, I'll work on that.
But you got the Read AI, so that helps you, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. She had
All
Kayla,
Lee, she
right.
was full of sound bites. I mean, great sound
Yeah.
bites.
Yeah. All right. Well, the name of the game right now is just,
Sponsorships.
well, yeah, it's true. Both, I guess. is sponsorships, which I may have gotten one yesterday, Shana. We'll talk. And
Woo!
then the other is, well, small, but the other is just, you know, get on LinkedIn, get on,
Yeah.
everybody you know, to just try to invite 3 people. That's just the 3 people thing. We got 55, 54 days, and it's still not too far out. And Danny is putting posters up around the local community, which will be great. And yeah, we'll just wait and see who's drawn to the room. That's the key. I'm not sure there's much more we can do except invite,
Pray.
invite, invite. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Quick question. Learning conversations, are we relatively closed at this point because we feel like we have enough? And given the question about number of participants, we don't want to exacerbate the attendee issue for
Yeah.
conversation.
I think we're in fairly good shape, so it's just a matter of, I don't think we have to close it, but we definitely don't have to like work very hard to try to get all that more. So if somebody makes their way to the application, there's no harm in us doing that. But I just wouldn't want to do like a hard push trying to get people to apply and us not having the space for them.
Mhm.
You want to quickly give the update from today?
Um, what is the update from today? I
Well,
mean,
I
we
just
have a
on who we accepted and who we didn't.
Oh yeah, Jason. So thanks for your input on WhatsApp. I looked at Sharita's and I felt like Sharita's offering was a little different. I think you're right. Not all that like earth shattering, but at least in form, it was in the medium. It's different. It's like somatic play and like trying to do stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of them are like sit and talk to people. So I thought that that would be valuable, and that she comes with a
Uh-huh.
different kind of perspective, different voice and face. So that felt good to me. Aaron Tyler, not so much. We have several that are focused on conversation and listening already. So, and it's not like we need it right now. So between the three that we just haven't seen fleshed out proposal for yet, which are Nicole, Mike Morrell, and Rayner. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, Rainier.
So just waiting on those. But if all of those go through, that means we have three for 2 days and four for one. So, and given if it's like 40 to 60 people, I think that's pretty good. Three options, three or four options a day. So I think we're in good shape.
Great.
And so, Cameron, if we could talk, I think we have a meeting coming up soon. We'll talk about how to connect. If you could, on Sharita, say maybe we could give her my Calendly link or whatever.
Yeah.
And then on Aaron, I think we want to let him down softly and let him know that we're full. Like, thank you, and we're with our, but we would love for him to be there and contribute and be a part.
And there will be open space as well.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to play and participate.
Yep. Great. I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody.
All right.
Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
At noon. Boom.
Everyone.
Boom.
Great job, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy.